It is sometimes necessary to create temporary files or directories while shell scripting. There are a lot of ways to do this, but arguably the safest and easiest is the Mktemp utility. In this tutorial, we will look at some of the security concerns that are introduced when using temporary files. We will also outline some best practices and how to use the Mktemp utility to safely create temporary files to be used in shell scripts. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of new videos. As you write more and more scripts, it is inevitable that you will find a need for temporary files or directories. While they can be a useful tool, some care should be taken when creating temporary files. Information disclosure, false data injection, race conditions, and file clobbering are all very real threats when using temporary files. Simply redirecting output to a file, especially in TMP, is problematic. The TMP directory by default is insecure because it is world readable. A file in the TMP directory will be readable by any user, potentially exposing important information. Using simple redirects to directories other than TMP is safer, but can introduce other security and functionality concerns. Mktemp uses the TMP directory by default. Later in this video, we will show you how to specify a directory when creating temporary files. If an adversary knows or can reliably predict the naming convention of your temporary file, this creates an environment perfect for symlink attacks. This may allow for information disclosure or false data injection. Someone could potentially use symbolic links to cause denial of service, overwriting files the OS or services depend on, capture your information, or feed your script some malicious data. Using an unknown and unpredictable temporary file naming convention is imperative. I have seen a lot of scripts end with the rm command used to clean up temporary files. This sounds like a good idea, but what if some error causes the script to exit prematurely? Also, long scripts often have several exit points where the script can end for a multitude of reasons. You would need to capture all of those exit points and ensure you have a cleanup command ready. These are just some of the reasons you need a good cleanup function in your scripts. An inferior cleanup solution can leave temporary files unprotected. These orphaned files may contain sensitive or otherwise valuable data and could be particularly susceptible to leakage. Using Mktemp will help follow best practices when creating temporary files or directories. It will not check if the file exists or symlinked before creation. But the unique file name generation paired with an effective cleanup mechanism should be enough to mitigate the risk of symlink attacks and other security concerns. Adding a check to ensure the temporary file is successfully created is a simple best practice to implement. If the file cannot be created for some reason, this check will save you from creating error conditions or other compounding issues. Creating a file with correct permissions is key to securing your data in temporary files. The Mktemp utility, by default, sets the permissions to be only read, writable by the owner. Lastly, using an exit trap will ensure your cleanup function runs and all files are deleted regardless of the script's exit status. Creating a temporary file with Mktemp is simple. You can test this on the command line by simply calling the binary. As you can see, a file has been created in /tmp named with a random string, and the permissions have been set to read and write access for only the owner. If you want to use this in a bash script, you can easily set a variable with the tmp file name. If you want to create a directory instead of a file, simply add the -d option. The Mktemp utility will use tmp period followed by 10 random characters for its file name. You can specify a template to use in file name creation. The template you specify must contain at least 3 consecutive X characters at the end for randomization. By default, Mktemp will use the directory specified in the temp dir variable. If that variable is not set, Mktemp will use the /tmp directory. You can override this functionality and specify the directory in which you want the temporary file created by using the -p option. It is good form to tell a script to exit if it cannot create the temporary file for some reason. Here we will use the OR operator to exit the script if it fails to create the file. This line will attempt to create a temporary file and store it in the variable $tmpfile. If it is unsuccessful, it will exit with a code of 1, which is used for general errors. When creating temporary files, it is usually desirable to automatically delete them after the script runs. We already spoke about why simply using the rm command is a bad idea. This is where traps come in. You can set a trap at the beginning of your script to run a command on exit. A trap is an effective way to ensure a cleanup routine is completed on script exit. You can set the trap to respond to different signals. To learn more about trap and see examples, read Using Trap to Exit Bash Scripts Cleanly on Putorius.net. We will put a link to the trap article in the description below. Safely creating temporary files is an important part of effective scripting. In this article, we covered some of the security issues that can arise from using the incorrect form of temporary files and how to correct them. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon to be notified of new videos.